Jim Steranko's MEDIASCENE, issue number 37, May-June of 1979, featuring Caroline Munro, Bill Ward, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Greetings, friends. Today we're going to look at a very special issue of Jim Steranko's classic publication, MEDIASCENE. Now, this is issue number 37, featuring Caroline Munro on the cover, and of course, a great article on Ms. Munro, along with another fine article featuring Bill Ward, and the second section of MEDIASCENE, which covers Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, as you can see here, I've had this particular issue since day one, since I purchased it as a wee teen in 1979. But for the purposes of showing it to you, I'm going to show you the digitized version because the images are simply better. Okay, we are looking at the cover of MEDIASCENE number 37, and that, of course, is Caroline Munro as Stella Starcrash. You may recall that incredible film from 1979, Starcrash. This was when Caroline Munro was really breaking out, cinema's newest sex symbol, and indeed she was. Incredibly, my parents allowed me to go cross country on a bus from California to Pennsylvania to Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Science Fiction Festival, which took place August 10th, 11th, and 12th of 1979 at the Pittsburgh Hilton. And Caroline Munro was one of the main guests of honor, along with George Romero, who sadly never was able to attend. But Tom Savini was there, Buster Crabbe, Jim Danforth, incredible animator, and others. So it was a fantastic convention. And one of the highlights to the convention is that I got a photo taken with Caroline Munro, the 1979 incredibly luscious Caroline Munro. Oh yes, folks. And I have the original photo as you see here. So let's move on to the interior, MEDIASCENE. Now, there are credits here. There's another thing about this particular issue which is rather special. But as we can see with the credits, Jim Steranko, publisher and editor, associate editor Ken Bruzenak, West Coast editor Don Glut, of course, Don Glut, who famously wrote the novelization to The Empire Strikes Back. And further down, we see the correspondents, Ken Fedunowitz, Doug Murray, and Bill Warren. Now, Bill Warren wrote for a lot of publications, including, of course, MEDIASCENE, but he also wrote for Fangoria, Cine Fantastic, and a host of others. But perhaps he's most famous for his incredible books, 2-volume series called Keep Watching the Skies, which came out circa 1980. Those books contained all science fiction films made during the 1950s. So it was an incredible undertaking, and Warren was assisted by a friend of mine, Bill Thomas, who worked at the Lancaster Public Library, where I lived during that time. That's how I got to know Bill Warren. Well, when it came to doing publicity for Keep Watching the Skies, I offered my services. I helped him take photos and so forth. I had a small but good collection of sci-fi movie posters from the 1950s. I was able to help Bill in that respect, doing publicity for the book. This is not the original cover, but this is a later published cover for Keep Watching the Skies. And you will find my name, Mike Lydon, in the acknowledgments. Moving on, we immediately come to the main story, Dear Caroline, all about Caroline Munro and how she got into films and all of the films she had been in to date, 1979. Of course, she was famously in The Spy Who Loved Me, the James Bond film. And I would say that her breakout came with the James Bond film as well as Starcrash. Those were two that just catapulted her into fame. years before she was in Dracula AD 1972. And of course, she was also in the fantastic The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, along with a host of other films. Some more great shots of Caroline on the left. And then on the right, we're getting into another article called The Comic Girls Part 1. You see right here on the left, that is The Comic Girls Part 1. The four-color females from Blondie to Sonia, abridged from the Steranko History of Comics. And here we go with a rather spicy article called Backstage with Bill Ward, and some of his spicy femme fatales, as only Bill Ward could render them. Here's more from the Comic Girls, a variety of characters. An ad, of course, Frazetta was white hot at this point, 1979. He had been hot for many years, still running on all cylinders at this point. Frazetta, 12 terrific treasures of fantastic adventure. And here's some more art from the Comic Girls. Some more ads here. Of course, there's Elric advertising 2 new heroic fantasy prints by Michael Whalen. And of course, Help, The Adventures of Sweet Gwendoline. And an ad for the Super Graphics comic catalog. Over 400 top quality items for fans and collectors. Man, I would love to get my hands on that. The Super Graphics stuff that Jim Steranko came out with was top quality. Comic Scene, MEDIASCENE, I loved them. And on the right-hand side, I just zoomed in a bit to show you up close and personal a bit from Bill Ward's Torchy. Oh, yes. Great pinup shots here by Bill Ward. And here's an article on Star Trek Into the Future, Plotting the Final Frontier, and some very spicy adverts from Steranko's Super Graphics, including his Supergirls pinups. Now, you can find some of these on eBay as well, and they are really quite nice indeed, as well as the Comic Collector new full-color comic book binders. You could get a set of 3 of these binders at the time for a mere $2.50. This takes us to section 2 of MEDIASCENE. As you can see here, Tim Curry as Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we have this article with photos all about Rocky Horror Picture Show. Who put the cult in the culture? That would be Rocky Horror. There's no doubt about that. This is fantastic. Now, when I was a teenager, once again, we're talking late 70s into the early 80s, there were midnight showings of Rocky Horror Picture Show, probably in half a dozen theaters throughout Los Angeles and Orange County, every Friday night or Saturday. And these are photos from various showings of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Robert E. Howard, Heroic Fantasy Calendar. And here's an advert for the Rocky Horror Scrapbook. Don't dream it, see it in 3 hot new volumes of Dark Delights. Here is a fine article, albeit rather brief, about the great Virgil Finlay, the man behind the pen, Finlay. So we're going to take a closer look at some of the art here because Finlay's art is fantastic. They talk about his process, scratch board, and so forth. I've never really figured out entirely how he did it and how he did it with such perfection. It's just incredible stuff, folks. And fortunately, they have one full pager of Virgil Finlay's work. Mesmerizing. From Out of the Past, 16 shadow thrillers in a great new book, The Shadow Knows. Also, Frazetta 80, the only new Frank Frazetta collection to be published in 1979. The 1980 calendar, of course. No need to go into orbit. Star Reach and Imagine are now in stock. I used to have a few issues of Star Reach back in the day. And now we are at Comic Scene. All the comics coming out, the hot stuff, the trending. We're going to zoom in a little bit here, folks. The Micronauts, Man-Thing, Battlestar Galactica, Shogun Warriors, The Hulk, Star Wars, The Savage Sword of Conan, Illustrated Magazine is Hotter Than Hell in 1979, as well as Conan the Barbarian. Machine Man, ROM, Space Knight, issue number 1. The Amazing Spider-Man, you got Spider-Woman, naturally the latest issue of the Fantastic Four. We have the Avengers, Ghost Rider, Men of War, All Out War, Green Lantern, the Hulk once again, Batman, Flash, and Call. Now that is one hell of a cover, folks. I'm going to zoom in. Now that is just beautiful. Let's go back to the Savage Sword of Conan. This is issue number 45. Nice cover there. Red Sonja returns. Next we have The Unexplained, a Ross Andru and Mike Esposito series. Jack Kirby Masterworks, 56 giant 11 by 16 pages, featuring new and unpublished Kirby art. We have a little article on Jack Katz's The Kingdom. Enter an exciting new world. Stan Lee proudly presents Warriors of the Shadow Realm, a Weird World epic. Barry Windsor Smith, another one of the artists that is red hot, especially during the 70s and 80s. And yet another page on Barry Windsor Smith to end out this particular issue. It's a whole lot of fun looking at these issues. I think Steranko did a smash-up job with both comic scene and media scene. It gives you perspective back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s in particular, what was going on with comic book art, with media, with films in Hollywood and off Hollywood, obviously. Cult films, everything. Media scene covered it. That was the great thing about the publication. I think Steranko, he had his finger on the pulse of everything going on, not just mainstream stuff, not just Hollywood, what was going on in the culture at the time. So there you go, folks. Media Scene number 37 from May, June of 1979. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.